Hi, my name is Jordan Campbell. I am an aspiring author. We went on a cruise recently, 4-day cruise, one of the cheaper ones, but internet cost like $100 or more for 4 days, which is crazy. So I didn't get that. So I had some time to think. I already decided I wanted to try this. I wanted to write a book, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to go about it. So I had some time to think about my story, to think how I wanted to maybe publish, but I always felt like there wasn't any point, that nobody would read it, no one would care. And I felt for a long time that I wasn't a good enough writer. But recently, it's something I've been trying to internalize, that you don't have to be the greatest writer in the world. You don't have to be Jane Austen or Stephen R. Martin to write a worthwhile story. I think that anyone, so long as you put effort, real effort, you give everything you can to your story, and I think there's an audience for that. And someone somewhere will read that story and they'll love it and they'll think about it. They'll come back to it. I think the greatest compliment author can get is that someone reread their story, that they read it more than once. And I think that's what I want most of all. I want to be able to share my own story. So I'm gonna give it a go. But I don't just want to sit down and write a story. I want to build a brand, which is what I think I'm gonna try to do with these YouTube videos. I'm also gonna do TikTok and Instagram just to start with. I don't want to put too much on my plate, but I'm hoping that once I have this story written, I'll actually have some sort of audience, that it won't just flop, and even maybe eventually I'll be able to make this a career, maybe. We'll see. A bit more about me. I'm 26 years old. I've been writing for at least a decade, more than a decade, at least since I was 14. I got my start on Wattpad, which I think a lot of people did. I've moved on since then, but I remember writing the first and only story I've ever finished. That's a big problem of mine, actually finishing a story. But it was only about 40,000 words, and it was terrible. Like, it was very badly written. But it was the first thing I ever finished, and I've never been able to finish another idea. Not even close. I've never come close to finishing another story. So I'm hoping this story will be the one. I can tell you a bit about it. It's a fantasy, set in a fantasy world, and it's a romance. I don't necessarily consider it a romantasy. I guess somehow it's not what I imagine when I think about the romantasy genre. I don't really know. I don't know why. I think I'd have to eventually, when I finish the story and send it off to some beta readers, they can tell me what they think. But it is set in a fantasy world, and it is romance. So take that as you will. So the main character is very obviously, I don't know, based on me, mostly because I just don't see a lot of main characters, main heroines in stories that I like really relate to. I'm talking like tall, broad heroines, not the usual like really tiny, short, skinny. Nothing wrong with those, but I wanted someone who I can relate to. She's a knight in the story, so she's fit and not necessarily like exactly like me, but to an extent. It was important for me that I had someone I could relate to in my own story. Her name is Essa. So she's the daughter of a very minor noble, but her first big assignment is she's part of the princess's guard. The princess, who is, she's 12 years old. I don't have anything set in stone, but what Essa really wanted was to be part of not the princess's guard, but the prince's guard, Kaylin, who is our main love interest, our main male character. Kaylin is the prince of this kingdom. I don't have a name for the kingdom. I haven't got to that yet. I want it to be perfect, or as close to perfect as I can make it. Something that will sound good, but stand out. I don't know. I just haven't settled on a name for the kingdom yet. There's a lot of things like that I haven't totally worked out, but I have started the story. I'm about, I think, 1,500 words in. Kaylin, he is the brother of the king. So he's not really expecting to rule it one day. It's not one of those stories where he's actually gonna be the king someday. No spoilers, not yet anyway. But he has some secrets of his own. To start out our story, he does not notice Essa, our main character, although she notices him a lot. He's more complicated. Kaylin is more someone really set on his duty. He's a quiet, controlled type. He doesn't necessarily notice Essa at first or think her particularly remarkable. In fact, even in the start of the story, there's a reason why he comes to distrust her. But as the story progresses, she'll prove why she's actually a lot more than he thinks. And I won't say too much yet. If you're interested in learning more, let me know. You can leave it down in the comments if you have any specific questions, but more about me. So I told you, I started writing when I was about 14. Of course, I'm a very avid reader. I like romance most of all. It's probably my favorite, but I like it with a bit of something. I don't generally like just straight romance or contemporary romance. I prefer, it doesn't necessarily have to be a subplot, but it should be as important as something else, such as fantasy in my world. Some other books I've recently enjoyed that might explain that. I really enjoy the Cruel Prince series, Uprooted, and I also really liked Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. Those are just some of the recent reads that I've enjoyed and that I maybe came for the romance but stayed because of the story. But I also have a background in fan fiction, which I don't personally judge at all. I think fan fiction is a really great way to hone your skills, to practice writing, and no pressure kind of environment. The characters are already there. The world is already there, usually, unless it's like an AU. And you can really use that, I think, to practice writing. At least I have. I definitely feel like at this point I've probably written more fan fiction than original fiction. Just as easy, not easy, but it's no pressure. Usually it's really easy to get it out to people, to connect with the readers, and easy way to get feedback. Usually in fandom spaces, it tends to be nicer and more uplifting, and you just get to enjoy the characters and the story without the pressure of needing a whole book out. You can update whenever you want. There's no money involved. I think it's just a really low pressure and a really good way of honing your skills as a writer. But I have recently wanted to write my own story, create my own world with my own characters, which is why I've started this particular story, which I've reworked a little bit. I've had the idea for maybe a year or two, but I haven't wanted to really sit down and get to it because I just, again, like, what's the point? No one's gonna read this. And I just didn't think my writing was very good. But if anyone's interested, it's most recent fandom, I think. I don't know if it's, I think it's most recent. Bridgerton. I just love Colin and Penelope. I mostly wrote that show off before because I didn't care. I wasn't really interested in the first two couples of that show. And I'd heard some stories about, at least from the first season, that didn't make me want to watch it. So I was one of those people who wrote it off. But I actually really related to Penelope in particular. I just love Penelope. I've probably never related more to a character in media. It's a bit because of just how unusual it is for a plus-size heroine to be the main character. But also just the wallflower, her being a wallflower, and a bit shy and on the edge of things. And oh, I love how she's the one pining for her best friend. And I love how that kind of flips in the show where Colin, the love interest, realizes that she's actually what he wants. Anyway, I could probably do a whole video of why I love that season in particular of Bridgerton. Like, that was probably my most anticipated show ever. I've never been so excited, so impatient for a show to come out, like, ever. And yeah, those 4 hours watching the first 4 episodes for the first time was some of the most fun I can remember. It was, yeah, I have a very soft place in my heart for that show. We won't necessarily talk about the second part of the season. Never mind, I won't get into that. But I also like Veronica Mars. I was also part of that fandom. Veronica and Logan, specifically. And Anne with an E, or really Anne and Green Gables in general. Anne and Gilbert were maybe one of my first couples, my favorite couples. Specifically the 1985 version with Megan Follows. I watched that often as a little girl, and I love them so much. I didn't want to give the Anne with an E series, the Netflix show, I didn't even want to give that a shot because I was so attached to the 1985 version. But in a lot of ways, I actually liked the show better once I finally gave it a shot. I also read the book by L.M. Montgomery. I wanted to read it again, actually. But it was just such a sweet story. I recommend that to anybody, really. I think the whole coming of age, and I think the timeline is really, I just love that story. You're a good girl. This is Belle. She's one. She's such a good girl. She's a Yorkie. You sure she go? You know. Anyway, I think that's all I have for now. If there's anything you want to know, any questions or tips, I think what I want to do is post monthly update vlogs, maybe, for how the story is coming along and my plans for it. Also, some how-to videos, publishing, or some how-to videos for authors. I'm sure I'll make mistakes, so if I can help any of you avoid making those mistakes, I think that, some learning videos, I think that'll be good. Mini documentaries about classic writers and how writing and publishing worked in their time is what I'm thinking. But yeah, that's it, I think. Again, if you have any tips or questions, let me know. any videos you'd be interested in seeing. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment letting me know your favorite genres, tropes you like, or books you recommend. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Oh my god, I kill myself.